Welcome to Grantsburg, Wisconsin. Population 1,361. It's actually the home of Dead Pedal Racing. Yep, they've got a race team up here, and it's headed up by Eric Peterson. Eric Peterson is the founder and owner of Dead Pedal Racing. Dead Pedal Racing races a Maserati, believe it or not. Yep, Maserati, Grantsburg, Wisconsin, 1,361 people. Hey, this should be interesting. Let's go take a look. Oh, I forgot. Later on, too, we're going to be going out to their test track. Yep, they've got a test track. Hey everybody, I finally made it to Dead Pedal Racing. I'm here back in their garage. We're getting ready to load up their Maserati to head out to their test track. But first I want Eric and Craig to talk a little bit about one, how they got into the racing world, and two, why in the world did these guys pick a Maserati? I'll let those guys to explain that to you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, I'm Craig Peterson, one of the drivers and builders of this fine machine. Team owner Eric Peterson.
Hi, yeah, I'm Eric Peterson. Craig does most all the building. I do some of the driving, but we've been driving this. We've been involved with endurance racing with Champ and before that Chump Car since what, 2013, I think. Yes. So it's been a number of years. Before that, we were doing autocrosses, and we both raced a little bit on doing things like that. I've been racing since, oh my gosh, basically my entire life. When my kids all got out of college, I realized I actually had a raise, so I could do something with the money and turn a little bit of savings into no savings. So this is the story of a unique car that we decided to use, and actually the first Maserati we used was Craig's car that I got, and I was going to restore, and it was so rusty by that time that we decided to go get a donor car, which is the white one you'll see over here in a little bit. That car was in such good shape that we decided it was not a good idea to break that one apart. It broke my heart. So we took the interior out of the red one, that Craig's old car, and then realized, I said, hey, we're about 2/3 of the way to a race car. So we continued on and spent a lot of years fine-tuning something that virtually no one ever races. In the field of a lot of BMWs, a lot of Hondas, a lot of Mustangs. We race in D class in the Champ Car, which is against V8 Mustangs and Corvettes and Camaros and Firebirds. So this is the latest version of our Maserati, 1987 Maserati Biturbo SI. It came with a 2.5 liter 90-degree V6, and you might say, well, why would you do something like that? Well, it has a whole lot of things that are great about endurance racing. Not the least of which is a car that weighs about 2,300 pounds, and when tuned right with the right components and basically a stock engine, we can see upwards of much more than 250 horsepower. This particular one we estimate now to be at about 300 horsepower at the wheels, with only small modifications and all within the rules. So why did we choose a Maserati? It was handy, and it had a lot of neat features. One was a 22-gallon gas tank, which if you've done endurance racing, you know that that's a big deal. You need to go 2 hours between stops, and this would allow that. It's light. Like I said, it's about 2,300 pounds, as you see it here. It is just a blast to drive. It's quick. Quick steering. It has what's called it basically has a torsion differential, which was one of the first cars to ever have something like that. And with a little bit of modification and better tires, better brakes, it competes exceedingly well against cars that are much more powerful and usually with big V8s. biggest questions we always get at a racetrack was who was Joe and why was he wrong? And it also has to do with our number 185. For those of you who know who Joe Walsh was, and he wrote a song and performed a song called "Life's Been Good to Me," that's one of the lines was, "My Maserati does 185." Well, he was wrong. It doesn't do 185. And then the next line is, I have a limo, I drive in the back. So it made obvious sense to put down my other car as a limo and I ride in the back. Only us oldsters remember that one, I'm afraid, though. So Craig here figured out that we could use a modified Subaru rotor, and the BMW 633 CSI from the late 70s, early 80s, used the same caliper with a spacer between the two halves. And sure enough, that's what we're running now with Hawk Blue on the front things. And we've kept the original brake circuitry just the way it is. And we can usually make a set of brakes last a full 8-hour session.
Right, we went from a 4-hour stretch when the original brakes with racing pads with the original rotors to doubling that just by putting a vented disc in there and spacing it out right.
We've experimented with wheels. These the original tires came with I think 185 or 205 14s. These are 245 17s. We have staggered it. We've tried that, but we found that the car works really well with 245s all the way around non-staggered with 17 by 9-inch wheels. We've spaced out the rear wheels quite a bit. As you can see, we have pretty good sized flares on all of that, on both front and rear, to give us as much width as possible. I spent a lot of time figuring out what that should be. In this particular case, the car came this way, so we didn't have to do a heck of a lot. But it's these tires that we're using, Hankook's RS4s. We can generally make a whole weekend with one full set of tires now. The other thing, like I said, it has a 22-gallon gas tank. We didn't put a fuel cell in. We don't need to, and its placement is just about where we want it to be. Interior, of course, has been stripped. We have a GPS speedometer, full fire suppression system. The seats, the racing seats on adjustment rails, so we can accommodate different drivers of different leg lengths, and we have a adjustable seat back positioner, so we don't have an issue with loosening up the seat belts in case we have a collision. And actually, that back piece is a 3D printed support that we did back in 2012 or 2013. The dash, all of the instrumentation is all custom. And last year we finally got rid of the stock ECU and put a Haltech Elite 2000 in, and struggled with it for a long time, but it has made all the difference in the world. We've got Lexan front windshield. We've done everything we can to knock weight out. And no, that's not carbon fiber, that's just a sticker. Carbon fiber in this racing series is illegal. We've added a splitter, a little bit of side shields that came with it, and we're going to put a wing on the back of this thing based on what we learned this next weekend at Hallett. Chrome moly cage, and like I said, this thing is pretty stiff. It's got a short wheelbase, which makes it kind of tough when it rains, especially with a pair of turbos underneath the hood. We relocated the intercoolers on this from the stock. The original intercoolers would be the intercooler was an air-to-air intercooler in front of the radiator. We changed the radiator to a CNR from a big block Chevy. We relocated all the piping to make better, straighter inputs, more direct inputs into the turbos. We've got 2.5-inch exhaust straight all the way back, and the intercoolers now down low here to keep them down away from the radiator to give us maximum cooling.
All right, Eric, I see you've got another stock Maserati right behind us there. Can we, let's step over there and take a look and see just how far you guys have taken this race car.
Sure. This Maserati is actually the one that got us into racing in the first place, because this was sitting in a barn outside of Rochester, Minnesota, in pieces, and it was supposed to be a donor car for the red one to be restored. In fact, this is how we got it, other than not being put together. It was just this nice. This is a fairly rare 85 liquid intercooled biturbo with a twin liquid intercooled system from Spirco. Maserati brought over a number of them that were not intercooled in '85 and contracted, or actually Spirco asked if Maserati would be okay with doing that. This is a carbureted version. It has everything the same as a standard Maserati. The block is the same. Basically everything's the same except for this plenum, which is pressurized by turbo pressure with a 2-barrel Weber underneath it. Note that it has a single coil. The later ones had twin coils and the normal distributor setup. But this is essentially a stock 2.5 liter that would have been the same as that one, the blue one, is the race cars originally.
Okay, now behind us, I see that we've even got just almost looks like a bare block or so. Well, why don't we take a look at that and see, you can explain a little more about the nuances of this motor, or Craig can.
Craig can do that.
Okay,
Craig
cool.
pulled this one out. This was the one that was in that blue car last year.
Basic 90-degree V-twin single throw crank. GM also made a 90-degree V-twin or V6, but separate offsets on the crank, so it fired like a 60-degree. This one is a true 90-degree. Crank is positioned fairly high up on the block, with the block splitting in half, similar to a dry sump system. It's a wet sleeve cylinder with Nicocel line cylinders. Typical overhead cam, timing belt. The water pump is run off the timing belt as well. This one, as in 1987, with the turbos, there's also, besides the oil cooling, the oil to the bearings, there's also water cooling jackets around the bearings, which was an add when they went to fuel injection in 1987 and beyond. Basic run-of-the-mill aluminum block engine. Runs well, turns about, red line I believe is 7,200 RPM from the factory. Timing belt service is, from the factory, was every 30,000.
Okay. All right, now let's take a walk back over to the race car, because now I want you guys to kind of take a look and see what these two gentlemen actually did to get that Maserati to go as fast as it does.
This is Dwayne Wagner, our crew chief. When we put the new Hallett ECU in there, he was instrumental in getting it right. Hallett did not have any tunes.
Haltech.
Haltech.
Hallett's where we're going to race.
Yes, I'm sorry. Haltech.
That's why you're a driver, not the engineer in the team.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. Just give me a map and I'll find it
Exactly.
eventually.
I'll just strap you and just turn
Yeah.
right. Just keep turning right. Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Haltech did not have any kind of tunes available for 90-degree V6, so we started from scratch, and Dwayne did all that. So
That's starting to work out really well. It's what I did professionally for a long period of time, but nonetheless, even coming into something like Haltech, it doesn't come with a lot of documentation, things like that I'm accustomed to, so it's been a long learning curve, but I think we've got a pretty good grasp on it now.
All right, Eric.
So this is the newest version of the 90-degree V. As you can see, this whole section up here is now fuel injection as opposed to the old carbureted version. Fuel injection was only available in the US in 1987. They had some that you could order later on through 1990 or so in Spider and a few other ones, but they didn't come as a standard unit. Canada kept them a little longer, but finding fuel injected motors nowadays is a little bit difficult. We've done a lot of work on oiling here. We've done a lot of work on cooling. As you can see, as we mentioned before, the CNR big big radiator. We have an oil cooler, external oil cooler we've put on this as well, a Mishimoto, and then all of our inputs now, or intakes, are down off the side. Basically, this internally is a stock motor. It has no new cams, it has no new lifters, nothing is different. The intake, the exhaust manifolds are slightly different than the original 2.5s, but they still follow. They still have this standard. I don't remember whose turbos they are. IHIs.
It's a newer
turbos.
version of the
Newer version. Yeah.
2.5.
We can run. We've been trying to figure out where the best boost is. We've been running as high as 14 psi. We're going to try to limit it down to a little bit less than that. It is endurance racing after all.
Factory boost was right around 8 psi, slightly over.
Yeah.
For the U.S. market.
Plus, I'll add, an important consideration is in Champ Car racing, you can keep a driver in the vehicle for 2 hours. That's been our competitive advantage. Some of the other vehicles can only run as little as an hour, 20 minutes. Well, if you get a 7, 8, 14-hour race, 1 or 2 less pit stops at 5 minutes apiece, ends up being multiple laps that we don't sit stationary. So it's one of the things that we make a lot more power now, but now it's a matter of trying to make sure that we have a reasonable possibility of getting back to a 2-hour driver max limit. So it's a lot of compromise in calibration driver. It's obviously weather dependent, so there's many things that go into it. It's trying to maintain our competitive advantage in the class that we compete against: Mustangs, Camaros, Porsche 928s occasionally, things like that. So it's a lot goes into this, a lot of considerations. Thanks.
Okay, so that kind of gives you guys an idea of why this Maserati is so fast. Right now, we're going to take that front bumper and splitter off, load it onto the trailer, and go to the test track and have some fun. When you live in a small community, such as Grantsburg, and you're looking for some place to test your race car, what better place to do it than the airport, I guess. Here's a test track. Okay guys, we're almost ready to make our first run here out at the test track / airport at Grantsburg with the Dead Pedal Racing team. The Maserati is back in the trailer as a Dead Pedal Racing team heads down to Hallett Motor Racing Circuit for a race this weekend. Second overall, first in class, even with the hood popping open and busting up the windshield. So good luck guys, get her fixed for the next race.